Good morning and welcome back to Planet Althistory. Today we are going to discuss what if the Soviet Union collapsed like Yugoslavia. Are you noticing a trend in here? Soviet Union, Yugoslavia, Eastern Europe and Balkan. Yes, these places where dreams come true. Where peace is an eternal truth. Where everybody gets along. Where border wars are unheard of. Where Turkey is your best friend. And where a country's name doesn't cause an issue whatsoever. North Macedonia. Anyway, let's get a little bit more serious in here now. Yugoslavia experienced the Yugoslav War for some years now. And this was a war that was fought, of course, on European soil. Many people think that with the European Union there was no more war. Well, guess what? Ukraine is having not a good time. And while I honestly like Russia and Ukraine alike, we can't deny that there is a war. And yeah, guess which continent it is? Europe. This may be seen in a similar context or not as Yugoslavia, but I think this is something that future historians they will figure out. Yugoslavia's breakup was very violent, while the collapse of the USSR wasn't that violent in comparison. It may be a surprise, but let's not forget that Russians within the USSR they had a huge majority, and that many other places like Soviet socialist republics or regions had their own minority in charge. But the number of Russians within these places shouldn't be forgotten. Actually, there was a war going on for similar reasons as the war in Bosnia, for instance. Transnistria or Pridnestrovje can be compared to the Republika Srpska. Transnistria wanted to join Russia, but Moldova didn't, and there was a momentum for unification with Romania. Both sides they were clashing, and now we have a frozen conflict within Moldova. Transnistria is in majority inhabited by Russian-speaking people, just like the Republika Srpska has a Serbian majority. Kazakhstan's north has a Russian majority, Belarus has a very weak national identity, Chechnya was a thing, Russia's many unknown national minorities are a thing, Georgia's pro-Russian breakaway regions, they are a thing too, and let's not underestimate the Russian minority within the Baltics, or so-called stateless people, as they are officially called. Honestly, there are lots of reasons that the Soviet Union could have broken up in a similar way as Yugoslavia. So what if all of that changed? What if the Soviet Union collapsed like Yugoslavia? One point of divergence we could take is that Yeltsin doesn't come to power, or that the coup against him had some success. We could also argue that nationalism would become a bigger deal with the Soviet Union and that people would get more radicalized than in OTL due to the economic hardship. What could happen is that the Soviet Union would, with their new government, maybe let their satellite states go, but they would not accept the independence of any Soviet Socialist Republic. The intervention in Lithuania would thus become bloodier, way bloodier. Order would have been restored, but only for some time. I think we could start seeing a chain reaction in Latvia, Estonia, and maybe even the Caucasus and Moldova, where the regions that in OTL had some difficulties with Russia or Russians would start to rebel in a more open and militarily way. The Russians would have no issues in keeping those parts, but would be condemned by the West, of course, and probably also by the former Soviet satellite states. This could go on for some time until eventually the Ukrainians would get aggressive about independence, and that's where the Russians would have to rethink their strategy. Troops would have been pulled out and a different strategy would be formed. I believe that giving some of the Baltic states, mainly Estonia and Latvia, their independence, while Lithuania would be needed to keep a direct connection with Kaliningrad, could happen. Moldova at that point would be difficult to keep around with the Ukrainians rebelling against the Russians. And Belarus and most of Central Asia would stay somewhat calm. Belarus would certainly become some type of Montenegro to this alternate Russia or Soviet Union. The main focus of the Russians could be A. to keep a direct connection with Kaliningrad, B. to keep Crimea and certain parts of the Ukraine, a huge access to the Black Sea, C. to keep the oil and gas-rich Soviet republics such as Azerbaijan, for instance, or Turkmenistan. Armenia, they could become more like Slovenia, Macedonia, where their independence would be easily accepted and it could free up some more troops. Georgia would suffer a lot. Not only would the Russians want to keep Georgia inside, but South Ossetia and Abkhazia too would fight to remain in Russia. Azerbaijan could unofficially get help from Turkey and fight off the Russians. But with a huge Armenian minority, Russia may even convince Armenia to join on their side and to win some territories in exchange. And I think Armenia would probably agree to do it. Other sides that the Turks would try to support would be, of course, countries like Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and so on. But however, in these parts, I don't think that there would be any significant threat for the Soviet Union. Remember, Kazakhstan, for instance, states until the very last day within the Soviet Union. Kazakhstan was for some days the Soviet Union. China, North Korea, Mongolia and Japan would probably not do anything actively, but some diplomatic remarks could be made. Japan would of course confirm that they have claims over the Kuril Islands. China may comment how they would like to see peace in the former Soviet Union, and Mongolia as well as North Korea would be busy with their own internal issues. How would the US react to this? Well, the US would morally support the independence of various countries, but not out of kindness, of course, but because of the idea that the USSR, Russia, or whatever entity would come out of it would be weakened, giving enough space for an American-US expansion with military bases, liberalization of the economies, exploitation rights, and much more. There would be a lot of money to be made. As such, a big focus would be done to support Lithuania and Ukraine, while Moldova would get more support from Romania in particular, and Georgia and Azerbaijan would be supported in some way or another by Turkey. Chechnya would see, just like Bosnia, a lot of Islamic fighters joining the ranks. Romania may even extend their support to Ukraine if they would be allowed to annex Moldova and parts of Ukraine, recreating Romania Mare. What about the local people? Most local people would of course hate the war, and we could also see Russians being tired not only of the economic collapse, but also of the insecurity and crime rising. Their own state would not be able to protect them anymore, and as a result, many Russians would go on the streets or also refuse to go and fight in the military. The government would know that if they continue doing this, they would be gone and even more chaos would erupt. Some goals would be changed, negotiations would be attempted, propositions of a loser Soviet Union would be made to no avail. Moldova would be abandoned as it had no real value to Moscow. Many Russians would be evacuated and something like Pridnestrovia would never exist in this timeline. Romania would annex Moldova and autonomy would be given to the Gagauz people, the Hungarians as well, and special protection would be given to the remaining Russians in Moldova. Lithuania would be kept, but under huge costs. Azerbaijan and Central Asia too would be still part of Russia or the Soviet Union, while Armenia would be enlarged and Georgia would be getting independence, but without Abkhazia and South Ossetia. Chechnya and Ukraine would remain a problem until maybe 1999, but in this timeline a smaller western Ukraine would finally gain independence, while Chechnya would be able to elevate their status equal to the one of Lithuania, Azerbaijan or Kazakhstan, for instance. The real winner would surprisingly be Romania and Armenia. Not only would both countries be able to grow their territories, but they would border to a friendly state. Poland in this scenario would become more militarized, and NATO expansion would still happen, and even include Latvia and Estonia as well in this timeline around. Poland not only bordering Kaliningrad but also Russian-occupied Lithuania would be a nightmare for them, and not to speak about Belarus still being part of this Russian Empire or successor state of the Soviet Union. The Russian economy would be worse on paper. But due to the war, I don't think we would get that many oligarchs. Lots of factories and companies would be destroyed, and the economy of the former Soviet Union would be changed beyond recognition. Only Central Asia would be able to truly benefit from it, because there would be an absence of military conflicts, the continuation of financing from Moscow, as well as the lack of border conflicts could really elevate the situation in Tajikistan, for instance. NATO would never intervene in a former Soviet Union state, but NATO would expand even more in this timeline. More money would be allocated to the military in Europe, and yes, even China would not be all too keen on becoming an ally to this alternate Russia. Unlike Serbia, Russian war criminals, but also war criminals from other nationalities, would never be able to be judged. But I think that less conflicts may arise as compared to the OTL due to the changes of the borders, the repatriation of Russian citizens, and also because honestly many people, they would just flee from their countries and they would be more busy, even busier in this timeline around to build their own economy. Maybe with this war there could be a potential that the economy could grow in a better way. But this is something that even I cannot predict. And that's where we leave it for now.
That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed my video. Be sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, support me also on Patreon, and join my forum, forum.planetalthistory.ga. Until next time on Planet Alt History.